Recently, a terrible storm destroyed Turkey, leaving hundreds of people injured and homeless.
A search and rescue operation is underway in northern Turkey after 27 people were in flash flooding.
Turkey has been hit by a devastating storm, leaving destruction and despair in its wake. Homes are destroyed, streets are flooded, and many are left injured or without shelter. In the middle of the chaos, the community bands together, fighting against the relentless forces of nature. In these dark times, tales of celestial beings bring a glimmer of hope to the heartbroken nation. Join us in witnessing the power of unity and faith as Turkey rises from the ruins. Turkey's harsh weather disasters. Not long ago, a huge, scary storm hit Turkey really hard. It was so bad that many people got hurt and didn't have homes to live in anymore. The storm came quickly and was very powerful. Why did this happen? Was it because of something really big and scary, like the anger of a god or a warning that the world is ending? In Turkey, the day turned dark and scary. Big black clouds filled the sky from one end to the other. The wind was super strong and brought a lot of rain with it. This rain was not normal. It was so heavy that it knocked down everything it touched. Tall buildings and trees moved back and forth a lot because the wind was so powerful. The storm was like a huge angry sea that had no end. It took away everything it touched, leaving behind a big mess and a lot of broken things. People were really struggling. They tried to walk against the wind, but it was so strong that even their umbrellas were no match. They saw their hard work get ruined right in front of their eyes. But even though it was tough, they didn't give up. They kept trying to move forward, even when nature was at its meanest. On the streets, it was chaos. Power lines were knocked down by the wind, which meant there was no electricity. This was really bad because people couldn't see well and got scared. Big signs and ads that you usually see high up were pulled out and tossed around like small leaves in the fall. It looked very scary and dangerous. Where people live, it wasn't any better. Everyone had to stay inside their houses, trying to stay safe from the wind and rain. They were really worried about their loved ones, their homes, and their things. They tried to keep warm and dry, but it was hard because the storm was so strong. Everyone was hoping and praying that they would be okay and that the storm would pass soon. In the beautiful, clear skies of Turkey, things changed very quickly one day. Big, scary, dark clouds rolled in out of nowhere. It looked like something bad was going to happen. The air got wet and heavy, and it felt like something cold was coming. Then it started. Rain started pouring down, but it wasn't just water. There were also tiny, hard pieces of ice. People started to get scared as they heard the loud noises of the hail hitting the ground. These hailstones weren't like fluffy, soft snowflakes. No, they were hard and cold, more like tiny ice rocks. They fell from the sky and hit everything. The ground, cars, houses. Everything made a sharp, loud sound when the hail hit it. It was like nature was throwing ice rocks everywhere. People had to rush to save their stuff, covering their cars and closing their windows to keep the hail out. Out in the countryside, it was really bad. The hailstorm hit the farms and gardens hard. Trees that weren't very strong broke, and all the young fruits got ruined. This was terrible for the farmers because their plants and their hard work got destroyed. This meant they would lose a lot of money, which is a big deal for people who live by growing food. As the storm got worse, people had to run to find safe places. They had to get inside their houses or find somewhere safe to stay until the hail stopped. They were all hoping that the storm wouldn't last long and wouldn't ruin everything they had. But outside, the hail kept coming down hard, covering the ground in a white layer. It wasn't soft and fun like snow. It was hard and mean, like a blanket of ice. In the small villages, life became really hard because of the cold winds and the hail. People had to work really fast to keep their animals and their important things safe. They tried to cover their cows, chickens, and other animals because these creatures were getting really cold, hungry, and scared because of the bad weather. It wasn't just the people who were having a tough time. Their animals were suffering too. On the roads, things were chaotic. Teams of people who help in emergencies and workers from different parts of the government had to move quickly to help anyone stuck or in trouble because of the hailstorm. Going from one place to another became super hard, but these helpers did everything they could. They tried to reach out and give the help needed, even though it was really tough to get around. The damage caused by big storms, floods, and hail in Turkey is a huge problem. For starters, these weather problems can lead to people dying or getting really hurt. Many people had their houses wrecked and lost their cars. Some people couldn't be found, and others got injured. Important things that everyone uses, like roads and bridges, and services that keep our lives running, like water and electricity, got destroyed too. This meant that lots of people couldn't use these things anymore. Next, farming and making food became really hard. The land got covered in water, and the plants that were supposed to grow got ruined. This was really bad for the people who grow food and look after animals. They lost a lot of what they needed to make money and live their lives. This caused a lot of problems, not just for the farmers, but for everyone who depends on them. The environment got hurt a lot by these storms. Pollution got worse, and lots of different kinds of animals and plants were harmed. This isn't just a problem right now. It's going to be a problem for a long time, affecting how people live in these areas in the future. Now let's see how people are coming together to pray and find hope after this big storm. The mysterious lights over Holy Lands. Lately, people have been sharing videos showing what seem to be angels in the skies above Jerusalem. This has been quite the shocker. And guess what? Similar sights have been seen in the skies of Turkey too. It's like the Archangel Michael decided to show up in these important cities. These places are very old, but still bustling with life today. They're filled with stories, and now it seems like they're also filled with something extra special. Signals, almost like ones you get on your TV or radio, but these are believed to be from the Archangel Michael himself. Now there's a part in the Bible in Daniel chapter 12 verse 1 where it talks about Michael. It says that during tough times, Michael, this really important angel, will come forward to protect the people. And now many believe he's really made his way to the old city streets of Jerusalem. But why is this visit so important? And why pick Jerusalem of all places? Now we also hear about him showing up in Turkey. The sight of Archangel Michael in these places is like a big bright light of hope and strength. He's like a big boss in heaven, looking after his special area and making sure everything's okay. But who exactly is this Archangel Michael? Why do people think he's so important? Well, to get that, we need to look back at religious texts, especially the Bible. In it, Michael is a top angel. He's known as one of the main guys in heaven whose job is to look after and help out the good people, especially when they're having a hard time understanding what God wants to tell them. The Bible, particularly in the parts written by Daniel, tells us that there's a big battle of good versus evil going on in heaven. Michael is like the captain of the good side, fighting against all the bad things trying to hurt people. Understanding Archangel Michael's role is about digging deep into these holy stories where his name pops up. He's mentioned as this powerful protector in the middle of a big spiritual fight. It's like he's the superhero for the good side, helping keep the balance against all the bad stuff trying to take over. However, the influence of Michael, this powerful angel, goes far beyond just old stories and books. His impact stretches through time, showing up in important historical moments when people really needed help. Think about when the Israelites had to leave Egypt a long time ago, or when Jewish people won against really tough odds. In those big, tough times, it's like Michael was right there with them. Even in recent history, during wars and big fights, people have said they saw signs in the sky, like angels watching over them, especially in Israel. For example, during the Six-Day War in 1967, some soldiers believed they saw heavenly signs that made them feel protected and gave them strength. These moments are like stories of Michael helping out, showing that the good forces are there even when things look really bad. But Michael isn't just about fighting on Earth. He's also seen as a key figure in future events, things that many believe will happen at the end of the world. In these times, which sound really scary and full of chaos, Michael is expected to be like a hero standing strong against all the bad and scary things. He's like a shining light, a symbol of hope when everything else seems dark and frightening. When we look at religious teachings and stories from the past, we can see how important Archangel Michael has been for a long time. He's like a comforting thought, a reminder that in all the tough parts of life, there's someone watching over us from above. It's like having a superhero for the soul, someone who's always on guard, protecting us from bad things and guiding us when we're lost. In the big picture of heaven and earth, he's like the chief security officer, making sure everything's safe and standing ready to help when things get really tough. His job is huge. He's watching over not just one place, but the whole world, and making sure the balance between good and bad stays right. This idea that there's such a strong guardian gives people a lot of comfort and hope, especially when they're going through hard times or facing big challenges. Let's look at how signs from the sky and faith are helping a country get through tough times. The strange signs in wartime skies. In recent times, there have been reports of conflict and battles. During these tough times, some people have seen unusual sights in the sky, like peaceful images appearing above Israeli tanks and vehicles. These sights make many feel that there's a special kind of protection, like a safe bubble, around the soldiers from something beyond our world. This feeling and these stories make many people, both those who study wars and those who believe in higher powers, think that maybe there's a kind of magical help coming from above. But the stories of this special protection aren't just old tales. They seem to be happening today too. For example, there was a time when fighters from a group called ISIS were moving close to where Israel's land begins. Suddenly, a big storm started, with lots of rain. Strangely, the rain stopped right at the border, not touching the Israeli side at all, especially in an area known as the Golan Heights. It's as if the storm itself was making sure not to bother the land. Many people saw this as another sign that there's a kind of invisible shield, keeping the country safe from harm. What's truly amazing about Israel's story is how it keeps bouncing back no matter what happens. Think about it. The Jewish people have faced tough times for over 2,500 years. They've been forced to live in different places far from home and have gone through really terrible times, like being taken away to Babylon a long time ago, or the unimaginable sadness of the Holocaust. But even with all these hard times, Israel stands strong today, more tough and spirited than before. This strength and never give up attitude show that there's a deep, unbreakable bond and a sense of special care that many believe comes from a higher power watching over them throughout their long history. When we look at Israel's journey and think about it, it's like a living example of the words from a sacred text, the Bible, where it says, "Happy is the country that has God watching over it, the people he has picked out for his own." This is a simpler way to say Psalm chapter 33, verse 12. The experiences of Israel really bring to life the idea that there's a never-ending stream of love and protection from above. This belief in these stories tell us about a connection that's not just about land or history, but about a deep and lasting care that many feel has helped guide and protect these people through the best and the worst of times. The role of God's angels is really special when it comes to the idea of spiritual battles. They are like invisible bodyguards and guides for people who believe and try to follow a good path in life. When you flip through the pages of the Bible, it's like a treasure hunt of hints and clues that tell us about important events to come, especially about the role of Israel in these big future changes. In the book of Zechariah, a part of the Bible, there's a mysterious message about Jerusalem. It says something like, "Watch out, I'm going to make Jerusalem like a shaking cup that causes trouble for everyone trying to fight against it." That's a simpler way to put Zechariah chapter 12, verses 2 to 4. This is a way of saying that Jerusalem is not just any city. It's like the main character in the story of how everything big and world-changing is going to happen, much more than just politics or countries fighting. In these old stories, Jerusalem, or Salem as it was known back then, isn't just a backdrop. It's like the heart of the whole plan that's supposed to help fix everything wrong with the world. Over and over in these sacred texts, there's this promise that God sticks with Israel through thick and thin, promising that things will get better for this special group of people. There's even a part, like in Psalm chapter 121, where it's like God is saying, "Don't worry, I've got your back. I'm watching over Israel nonstop," offering a kind of superhero shield to anyone calling out for help. Through so many tough times, Israel has managed to bounce back in ways that make you think there's something bigger at play. It's like a comeback story that keeps happening, showing that there's a powerful promise at work, a promise that things will get better. And then there's the story of Jesus being born, which was a huge deal that had been hinted at long before it happened. This wasn't just any birth, it was like the biggest news ever, the kind that deserved to be shouted from the rooftops, according to these ancient stories. Out of everyone in the world, it's really interesting that shepherds were the first ones to hear about the birth of Jesus from the angels. This part of the story is something Michael and Stormy Omartian brought to life in their musical, Child of the Promise. This musical is like a big storybook come to life with songs, showing all these different people from the Bible like prophets Jeremiah and Isaiah, Joseph and Mary, and many others. And among these characters, there are the shepherds hanging out in their fields near Bethlehem. In this musical, the shepherds have a funny song. They joke about their lives, how they're just simple guys, nowhere near the fame of someone like Shepherd David, who fought the giant Goliath. They think of themselves as the very bottom of society, with no big dreams or chances to be heroes. But then something amazing happens. An angel shows up, glowing with an incredible light, and he's not alone. There's a whole crowd of angels with him. This shocking visit leaves the shepherds completely speechless. It's a big deal in the story because it shows us something special about why God chose to send his message to these simple men first. Back in the times when Jesus was born, being a shepherd was really tough. They didn't stay in one place. They moved around a lot, taking care of their animals, which were usually a mix of sheep and goats. Their life was far from easy. They were often out in the cold, working hard, and they didn't get much respect from other people. So why did the angels go to them first with the biggest news ever? It's like God was making a point. He wasn't looking for the richest or the most famous people to share the joy of Jesus' birth. Instead, he chose the shepherds, people who were seen as unimportant and overlooked by most. This was a way of showing that this new hope, this big, joyful news, was for everyone, not just the powerful or the popular. Let's go back in time to understand why shepherds are so important in stories of hope and messages from above. The night shift for sheep keepers. The men who looked after sheep were very busy and always had a lot of work to do. They couldn't just relax at night like many other people. Instead, they had to make sure all their sheep were safe inside an area where they could keep an eye on them. This was to make sure no wild animals or thieves could hurt or steal the sheep. Every morning, these shepherds would count each sheep to make sure they were all there. If even one sheep was missing, they would go out and look everywhere until they found it. Shepherds had permission to let their sheep eat grass in fields near towns. Sometimes their sheep were chosen to be offered as gifts to God in the big temple in Jerusalem. This meant they had to take really good care of their sheep and goats, not just because they needed them for wool and food, but because they were important for their religious practices too. Even though important people in the Bible, like Abraham and Moses, were shepherds, by the time the first century came around, being a shepherd was not seen as a good job. In society back then, shepherds were looked down on almost as much as tax collectors and people who cleaned up waste. The religious leaders, who were very proud and strict, treated shepherds and other regular workers very poorly. They even went so far as to call them sinners, which was a harsh way of saying they didn't follow all the religious rules and were not respected. But something incredible happened to these shepherds, who were not seen as important by other people. The Bible shares a special story. One night, while these shepherds were out in the fields with their sheep, something amazing happened. An angel appeared out of nowhere, and the whole area lit up with a bright, beautiful light. The shepherds were really scared at first. Who wouldn't be? But the angel spoke to them calmly and said, "Don't be afraid. I have fantastic news for you, news that will make everyone happy. Today in Bethlehem, the city of King David, a special baby was born. He is the Savior, Christ the Lord." The angel told the shepherds, "This is how you'll know I'm telling the truth. You'll find a baby all wrapped up in a warm blanket and lying in a feed trough for animals." And just like that, out of nowhere, a whole bunch of angels appeared in the sky, all singing and praising God. They sang, "Glory to God up high, and peace to everyone on earth who makes him happy." When the angels went back up to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's hurry to Bethlehem and see this amazing thing that's happened, which God has told us about." They rushed off and sure enough found Mary and Joseph, and there was the baby, just like the angel said, sleeping in a manger. When the shepherds saw this, they couldn't keep it to themselves. They told everyone what the angel had said about this baby. Everyone who heard the shepherd's story was amazed. But Mary, the baby's mother, kept all these things in her heart, thinking deeply about them. Then the shepherds went back to their sheep, but now they were singing and praising God too, because everything they had been told was true. Now, why would shepherds be the first to hear about the birth of Jesus? God always has a plan, even if it's not obvious to us. Sometimes we need to look a bit deeper to understand what God is doing, and other times we might not understand His plan at all. That's okay though, because we know God is always in control. The Bible even tells us, "My plans aren't the same as your plans, and my ways aren't your ways," which is God's way of reminding us that He sees the big picture that we can't see. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8. Even though the Bible doesn't give a step-by-step reason why the shepherds were chosen first to hear the good news, we can think about a few reasons. Maybe it was because shepherds weren't seen as very important back then, and God wanted to show that this new baby, Jesus, came for everyone, not just the rich or powerful. Or perhaps it was because Jesus would grow up to be called the Good Shepherd, looking after people just like shepherds look after their sheep. We might not know all the reasons, but what we do know is that God chose those shepherds for a special reason. And that tells us a lot about how He cares for every single one of us, no matter who we are. Let's dig deeper into why being humble and guided, like the first shepherds to hear the big news, matters to us today. Jesus appreciates all of His followers. Let's think about why the angels chose to visit the shepherds first. This is a question that can help us understand more about Jesus and what He means to all of us. When Jesus talked to the people who followed Him, He said something really important. He told them, "If you're tired and carrying heavy loads, come to me and I'll give you a break. Join me and learn from me because I'm patient and humble, and you'll find rest." That's a simple way to say what's in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. The shepherds, more than anyone, would really get what Jesus was saying because their lives were really tough. Being a shepherd was not a glamorous job. It was all about looking after others, being outside in all weathers, and not being seen as very important. Jesus came into the world not as a powerful ruler, but as a small baby, and He grew up in a simple family, not in a palace. This showed right from the start that He wasn't here to hang out with the rich and powerful, but to be close to regular, everyday people. The idea of shepherds is a big theme in the Bible. Some of the big names like Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and David were shepherds at some point. They knew what it was to look after sheep, but back then, being a shepherd was looked at a bit differently than it was by Jesus' time. David even said in the Psalms that God is like a shepherd, and later Jesus Himself said He was the good shepherd. This means He's there to guide and protect us, like a shepherd does with their sheep. Isaiah, another part of the Bible, talks about how we're all like sheep who have lost our way. But Jesus, He's described as the one who takes on all the mistakes we've made. He's like the head shepherd, keeping us safe and even giving up His life for us, which is what shepherds sometimes had to do to protect their sheep. When we choose to follow Jesus, it's like we're becoming part of His flock. The shepherds outside Bethlehem were just doing their job, staying up all night to keep an eye on the sheep, when suddenly they saw something amazing in the sky. They were scared at first, but then they believed what they were seeing and hearing. Their reaction was very different from many people back then who were waiting for a powerful warrior-type king to save them. But the shepherds, they just accepted this incredible news. This story contrasts with how many behaved at the time. They went through religious motions without really putting their hearts into it. It shows that sometimes the people we least expect are the ones who understand and accept the truth right away. It's like saying that being open, humble, and ready to listen, like the shepherds, is better than waiting around for big signs and wonders while missing the real thing happening right in front of us. The shepherds in the story of Jesus' birth were just regular folks, not really known for being super religious or interested in deep spiritual truths. But Jesus, when He was on earth, kept talking about this big idea of a kingdom, a way of living that was all about love, kindness, and truth. You can see this in parts of the Bible like Mark chapter 1, verse 14, and Luke chapter 4, verse 43. After the shepherds visited baby Jesus, they couldn't keep it to themselves. They went back to their normal lives, but changed. They shared with everyone the incredible things they had seen and heard, praising God all the while. This is sort of like what we do today. We share the good news, the gospel, about how life can be different because of Jesus. Luke chapter 21, verse 17. So what does this mean for us? It might seem like the shepherds are just a small part of the big Christmas story, but there's a lesson here. Everything in the Bible, every story and detail is there for a reason. It's all part of a bigger picture. We should read the Bible with excitement and an open heart, looking for all the amazing things God wants to show us. Even Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, shows us something important. It wasn't a big famous city, it was small and ordinary, just like Jesus' birth was humble, not flashy. Jesus came to earth with a big job, to bring hope and a new way of living, but it wasn't going to be easy. He talked about how following him means making big changes in our lives. He said that if anyone wants to follow him, they need to be ready to give up their own wants and needs, to take up their cross every single day. This means living in a way that's not always easy, putting others first, and following Jesus' example. Luke chapter 9, verses 23 to 24. We're like citizens of Jesus' kingdom, and while we live now with hope because of him, we're also looking forward to when he comes back. That's when everything will make complete sense, and we'll be with him forever. If we only think Jesus is important for our lives now, and don't think about the bigger picture, we're missing out. The real hope, the really big deal, is what comes next, after this life. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 19. We all need someone to look after us, someone like a really good shepherd who makes sure we're safe and going the right way. This isn't just about keeping us safe from other people or bad things around us. It's also about helping us not to make bad choices ourselves. In the Bible, Jesus is called our good shepherd. He's like the best kind of shepherd there could ever be because he looks out for us in every way, making sure we're okay. He's there to help us when things get really tough, telling us that he's beaten the worst the world can throw at us. That's what he means in John chapter 16, verse 33. There's going to come a time when everyone will have to stand in front of God, who sees everything. It's like when a farmer sorts out his animals, deciding which are sheep and which are goats. Jesus says the sheep, the ones who listened to him and followed his ways, will be brought close to him, like being on his right side. He will tell these sheep they are special to his Father and that they'll get to be part of this amazing place he's been getting ready for them. But the goats, the ones who didn't listen or follow his words, will have to go far away from him, to a place that's not nice at all. The sheep represent the good people who will get to live forever in happiness, while the goats are like those who didn't pay attention and have to face really tough consequences. When you think about the Christmas story, especially the part with the shepherds out in their fields at night, it's a chance to see all the good things about Jesus. How humble he was, how kind, how generous, how perfect, and how truthful. It's pretty amazing that God would choose shepherds, who weren't seen as very important people, to be among the first to hear the best news ever. And just like he used the shepherds, he uses us too. We get to be his messengers, his representatives here on earth, like it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 20. As Turkey rebuilds from the storm's wrath, we're left to ponder. Is this a mere test of human resilience or a message from the skies? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of survival and hope.